So now I'll go over the sort of cost breakdown, and I have a few extra items that you should consider. But basically, my cost breakdown doesn't include the cost of tools because, as I mentioned earlier, I ended up being able to have a friend come over who had all this stuff, and he just brought it all over to my house, like the circular saw, miter saw, um, some extra clamps. He brought a whole table to be able to like saw the wood on and set up his saws. Um, he also brought wood glue, which we ended up applying basically between every piece of wood, which he just had it on hand and it wasn't that much work to incorporate that. So we went ahead and did it. Um, I don't know how, having not compared it to a wall that wasn't built with wood glue, I can't really speak to what the difference would be, but yeah, just something to think about. Most of the cost is going to come from the holds and bolts if you don't have all the required bolts. So on Moon Climbing, you can buy bolt sets for each of their hold sets. They're not too expensive individually for each set, but I mean, as you can see, it added up to around 85 bucks, I believe, after I got bolts for all of these hold sets. I would like to point out that the original school holds include the footholds that you'll need for your kicker. So don't make the mistake of buying those footholds separately unless, I don't know, you want them or something. But yeah, just remember, and it says this on the website, but it wasn't super apparent to me when I first visited the site and started like putting this spreadsheet together. It wasn't until later when I started like thinking about until I started thinking about pulling the trigger on actually ordering this stuff that I kind of read the fine print and saw that. So that's nice that you don't have to buy those separate. But yeah, I think my total order from Moon Climbing was in the ballpark of $1,300. Shipping is pretty expensive. So on Moon Climbing, they do have a DIY kit. And it doesn't seem like it's too bad of a deal, right? Like it's a good deal, I guess. I mean, there's no other way to put it. If I spent $1,300 roughly on all of the hold sets and bolts, and I didn't get the plywood, and I didn't get the LED system, for just $1,000 or $900 more dollars, you get your plywood, which according to my cost breakdown, I ended up spending $210 on because I went with some pretty nice stuff and I got 3 panels instead of just 2. And then you also get an LED kit, so that's pretty solid. The problem is when you add this to your cart and you live in the US and you go to checkout, another $1,000 gets tacked on for shipping. So all of a sudden you start to realize like, okay, this really cool looking plywood and these lights maybe aren't as worth it to me. Without those things, shipping is only $140. So to spend another basically $900 on top of the, what did I say, $900 for the LED and the panels, you're looking at $1,800 more dollars on top of this. So literally doubles the cost if you do the DIY kit, at least for the materials I have presented here. So something to think about. I mean, if you want to go for it, obviously do. It would be super cool to have that. And yeah, those panels look super nice. But yeah, I don't know. I just chose not to do it. Shipping was definitely a deal breaker for me on that. So yeah, this for all these pieces here, if I remember, it was like $1,300, and obviously you can like add these up. Okay, so the plywood I ended up going with, I ordered everything from Menards. Yeah, so after doing some research, I decided I wanted to get A1 plywood, and from what I understand, A1 just means there's no knots, essentially. Literally, the 3 pieces I got looked just like this piece here. Very smooth, pretty looking grains, no imperfections really. Yeah, like it looks really nice. And the reason I went all out on this is because it sits in my living room. So I have a family room where like my TV and stuff is, but in my living room, we basically, it's just a big open area we turned into sort of the workout area, which you'll probably see in some of the pictures. And it's right by the front door. So when people walk into my house, the first thing they're going to see is this wall. And I just wanted it to look nice. So going with A1, I think is probably the primary property that makes it so nice looking. What makes it strong, I think, is the veneer core and the fact that you're getting 3/4 inch and not 1/2 inch. As far as the types of wood go, there's a YouTube video by like Climber Dad where he talks about Baltic birch being like the strongest and the best. I just couldn't find any Baltic birch that was A1 anywhere near where I live. And even this stuff I had to order and have it shipped to the store, which incurred like a extra $14 or something like that for packing it all together. So yeah, maybe go with Baltic birch if you can get some nice stuff, or if you don't need A1, just get that or whatever. There's better videos out there, like the Climber Dad video on plywood, I think was really helpful in just feeling like I had some confidence in shopping for plywood. So I'd recommend checking that out. For the 2x6s, I just got construction / framing lumber. It doesn't look super nice, I guess. I don't know if any 2x6s do, but I'm sure you could finish it or something like that. I'm just not going to do that. But it's not too expensive. I got, let's see, 2 6-footers for $8, 6 8-footers for $35, and 6 10-footers for $48. And again, later I'll talk about what I turned these into size-wise, but those were the raw materials. And all in all, like even with the more expensive plywood, I didn't think I thought this was pretty fair, really. I mean, it pales in comparison to the cost of the holds. And also, you'll notice in my videos, in my video of and pictures of the actual wall, I just have a bunch of atomic holds on there right now that I already had in my collection, because there's like I think I still have to wait like 2 months before I'll get my climbing holds from Moon. Which, given the quarantine and all that stuff, totally is fine. It's coming from another country. It's whatever. But, I'm excited to get them, obviously. But the wall is still super fun to train on, even with just a smattering of atomic hold. Then for the plywood screws, I'll throw in a photo of those. I took a picture of the can or whatever they came in. I didn't order those. I just had a lot better experience shopping for these screws in the store than I did online. But again, number 8, 2-inch for the plywood. The bin they came in, I believe, was 125 count. For the number 10 3-inch, they came in 75. I didn't buy any screws aside from these. After I think I used 7 screws for my hangboard that I put above my door frame, and then the rest of those 125 went into the wall. So I used every single screw of this 125 count between the hangboard and the wall. So maybe keep that in mind. If you want to put in extra, I felt like I was pretty liberal with how I used the screws and didn't skimp. I just wanted, all the videos I watched, everyone recommended just using a lot of screws, so I did that. For the frame, basically anytime I connected a 2x6 to another 2x6, I used the number 10 3-inch screws. Those came with 75. So I haven't used those in any other project, and I think after just building the wall, I have like 7 left. So I cut it pretty close, but I guess you can get by with that. And again, I feel like the wall's super sturdy. I'm realizing here that I didn't include the bolts, the actual 3/8 inch. Yeah, I'm probably not going to go look that up, but if someone has like a question about them, I can always do some more research on what I got. But yeah, just get grade 8. I'll have a picture of them, what they look like in the wall. You can tell they're grade 8 because they have 6 little pips around the hex head, So just the head of the bolt, you'll see like 6 little pips raised up. If you get grade 5, I'm sure they're super strong too. You'll probably be fine with that. They only have 3 pips, I believe. So just something unique about bolts, I guess. And you can look up the shear strength and stuff and make a decision for yourself on what you want to do. In my opinion, the grade 8 didn't seem like they were too much more expensive. So yeah, I ended up using 4-inch 3/8 inch grade 8 bolts. That's a lot of 8s. So I just used 4 total, 2 on each of the top connectors of the main support of the wall, which you'll see in the pictures that I'll have going on the screen. But also make sure when you get the bolts that you get the matching grade 8 washers and nuts. So make sure you get 2 washers per bolt and 1 nut per bolt, obviously. You just want to put a washer on both sides of the things you're fastening. So one right underneath the head and one right before you place on the bolt, and tighten and cinch everything down. And you'll be able to see that in the pictures, hopefully. So yeah, that's, I think, pretty much the only thing that's not in this spreadsheet that's like a bare necessity that you'll need. And maybe you could maybe do carriage bolts, something, I don't know. You could probably do other stuff. I went with that because the one YouTube video where a guy built a freestanding wall that I watched a whole bunch of times, that's what he used. So yeah, I just went with that since it seemed like it worked. And then T-nuts. So I ended up getting these, I think they're pretty popular. Escape Climbing seems like maybe the main brand or whatever. They come with their own screws. I got these guys. I just figured, like, since these might stay more in place than the ones you hammer on that just have, let's see if they have these guys instead of the 4-prong. These just seem like these would stay more secure. So I have a boulder board, which is basically a pre-built pre-manufactured, pre-built freestanding climbing wall. You'll probably see it in the pictures next to the Mini MoonBoard. But those used 4-prong, and I've never had an issue with it. They came already inserted in the wood with that wall, and if they're all ever off angle or something, I can just like take a little screwdriver and kind of move them a little bit and then get a good thread going with the bolt. I'm familiar with those. I had a really bad experience trying to use these 3 holes because the night that I set up my plywood and drilled all the holes and placed all the T-nuts, I guess I wasn't careful enough. Some of the T-nuts came in and because you screw them, they're like secure. You're not able to just put a screwdriver in there and kind of move them around and wiggle them to the position you want. Like I've stripped probably 10 of these. Luckily I have a lot of extra because I only use like 130 some odd T-nuts with the Mini MoonBoard setup, and they come in 100 count, so I had to get 2 sets of those, so I still had roughly 60 extra that I can burn through, but I've already had to replace probably 10 just when I set the atomic holds, just because they were at a bad angle and they just seemed like they stripped super easily, much quicker than the ones in my boulder board wall. Again, this could be from lack of experience in installing these things, not really know what I'm doing, and not lining things up well. Like I don't have any setting experience in a gym or anything like that. So yeah, I don't know what I did wrong, but I've once I've replaced them and I've paid more attention and gotten them really flush in the hole, I haven't had any problems. But it was pretty frustrating to like have it all done and then have to go back, walk behind your wall and try to like take these things out, especially if they're higher up. It's just really annoying pain when you're just excited about putting holds on and climbing. So yeah, just a little bit of my experience with that. Yeah, so last thing were these Joyce Hangers, which I mentioned when I was talking about setting up the wall, building the wall. This is what they look like. They actually come in 2 places. There's a good little video on how to install them. The like in this example though, obviously your board's going to be flipped. You're going to be installing them like vertically upright instead of with the back on the ground. So it's a little different, but pretty straightforward. Screws seem nice. Mine didn't come with Phillips head. They came with a hex head, so make sure you have the appropriate drill bit if you're going to go with something like that. But yeah, all in all, I'm really happy with that. As far as so that comes to just under 2,000, $1,830 for all that, and that I think that pretty much includes tax. I tried to round up a little bit on some things. So again, if you have all your tools, or you have a friend who has all their tools, or a parent or family, whatever, who has tools, this could be roughly what you would spend. A couple extras I bought. So I spent like $20 on Amazon buying shuffleboard score trackers, which are these abacus like wooden score tracker things. And I took off a bunch of extra. I set them up to where they're only 10 on each one. And my idea with that, and I got this, I just saw Dave McLeod training and like using a little wooden abacus to keep track of like sets. And I was like, that is so cool. And I put 2 of them on the MoonBoard because I thought it'd be cool to play add-on with them. Like you could keep track of score with them, like 1st to 10 or whatever. You could also, I remember Paul Robinson plays like Moonpig, so if you had a friend over and you wanted to play Moonpig or something, you could just keep track with that. It just seemed like a cool way, kind of, yeah. Anywho, kind of geeky, but I didn't include that in here. But you can find those for like $20 on Amazon. I would recommend, like even if you're borrowing other people's tools and stuff, if you don't have like a good corded drill, I would recommend just getting one for like $30. I'll have a picture of the Craftsman or whatever I got. It might be a black, I don't even know. It was, I think, an 8 amp or something. I don't know much about drills, but while I was in the store looking at the different corded drill options, it seemed like there were kind of 2 variants. I got the lower number ampage or whatever because it just said, like, on the websites I was reading, it said that for little DIY projects and stuff, this should be all you ever need. Well, I'm just going to say, if you work with power drills for a living, you don't need to hear from me what you should use. So I just got the one that was recommended for DIY projects, and it was like $30, and it's awesome. It's great. So when I got the boulder board, I bought a really cheap small cordless drill, which is great for putting in holds, because even on 10 power, like, it's not strong enough to drive the bolt all the way through, which sounds kind of bad, but in my opinion, it's better to like just use the drill when you're actually placing a hold on the wall to like get the bolt really close and then actually cinch it down with your hand. That's just my experience. Not a setter. I don't know. In my experience though, like, I've never stripped a bolt when I do that. I've never stripped a bolt while like placing a hold on the wall that way. I've stripped bolts trying to place a bolt into a really crooked T-nut now, but up until that, I hadn't stripped any bolts using the kind of weak drill with an Allen wrench method. So yeah, clamps, sky's the limit on these. My friend mentioned several times, like, you can never have too many clamps, and after I saw how he was using them pretty ingeniously, in my opinion, with like holding up really heavy things and doing all that, holding things in place, I totally agree. Like, get as many clamps as you think you need. Borrow as many as you can. I just ended up buying two big ones was all I needed for doing the plywood drilling on my own. So at a minimum, I'd get 2 decent clamps, and then recommend buying as many as you're comfortable with. I borrowed a sander from a friend, just a Black & Decker one. I don't know anything about it. So yeah, can't really speak to that. These gymnastic pads. So obviously use whatever pads you want. I have bouldering pads that I use for the boulder board and for going outside, and I was thinking about using those. But then I came across this product from We Sell Mats, and it's available on Amazon. So it's expensive. It's $300, but it's a 4x8 and it folds up in half. And you can kind of see it under my wall. The 4x8 I think is a perfect size for the wall because it's 8 feet wide, the wall is, and it fits really snug in between. I actually sort of went all out and ordered 2 of these because I just want to have like tons of mat space on there, especially once I actually start doing big swinging moves and stuff like that. I don't know how far away from the wall I'll swing. Not that the wall's that tall. Obviously, it's really small with the mini setup, but still, I don't know. This is more of just like maybe a product recommendation. I'm happy with it. I've taken falls off the top of my boulder board, which goes all the way up to 8 feet. And obviously they were somewhat rehearsed. Like I wasn't trying to like fall in a weird way, mostly just checking that when my butt hit the mat, did I feel the ground underneath? And I didn't. That being said, I am on some pretty fluffy carpet, but still seems like it's great for that. And I don't expect to fall as far, obviously, on the Mini MoonBoard because it's just not as tall. So really happy with that product. Yeah, so that's pretty much the breakdown of all the costs. Really quick, I'll go through the different lumber cuts. So I just made this quick list of what I needed to do the day of. So to recap, I had 2 6-foot 2x6s, 6 8-footers, and 6 10-footers. So the way that I cut those was I took the 2 6-footers and I cut those down to 5'7". And actually, if you'll recall from earlier in the video, I didn't actually cut those down to 5'7". That would have made everything like flush, but I just decided to keep them at 6 foot. You can see in the actual pictures of my wall that it just extends 5 inches past, and I'm happy with that. Like it looks a little silly, I guess, but like it also prevents kickback a little more maybe or whatever. So yeah, optional cut. You don't necessarily have to do that. I decided the day of not to. So the first actual cut that I did was cutting the 2 8-footers to 7 feet and 3 inches. That's a really straightforward cut, just at 90 degrees. Yeah, super simple cut. Getting your angled cuts was really interesting because you have to do 2 of them, right? You have to do the one that creates the correct 40-degree angle that you're climbing on. So basically this cut. But then to fit them in the Joyce hanger, which you can see in the pictures, you also need to cut off the excess here because otherwise this part just spills out. So yeah, so the first thing we did was we set the miter saw to 50 degrees and cut off the ends. So yeah, 50-degree miter saw cut got us this angle right here. And then what we did, actually let me think, what did we do for this part? So to figure out how to cut this off, it's kind of weird, but we took an extra piece of, we basically took the end that we cut off from this miter cut, and we used it to measure the, to mark where we needed to cut off this bit. And then we just used a square, I guess it is, even though it's shaped like a triangle. Again, complete beginner here. But we used a square to like line up that. And that, you can probably think of many ways to do this. If I could maybe try and figure out how to do like an example of how I did that in another video or something, but once you've got this 50-degree cut, it becomes sort of, there's multiple ways you can think of how to trim this end off to get this nice little like dagger point here. So yeah, I guess that's all I'll kind of say about that. Just remember 50-degree for the miter and you're golden. And after yeah, I'd also recommend on your phone, if you have a smartphone, install a clinometer app, which I don't know, I could probably show like a screenshot of that or something, but basically it'll just let you tilt your phone and it'll tell you what the angle is that your phone is tilted at. So if you hold your phone flush against anything, it will tell you what angle that thing is tilting towards. So I just used that pretty liberally the whole time I was trying to figure out if these angles were right. Like I would set, after we did like the 50-degree cut, I would set this thing to where this edge where my pointer is was flat on the ground, and then I'd hold my phone against this edge where my pointer is and see what angle it said. And it was always like 40 point some change, but I don't super think that my phone's probably perfectly accurate, so definitely within the tolerance I was comfortable with. And I think if I go down right now and hold my phone against it, it ranges between 40 and like 41 degrees. So like against the wall here on the plywood. So super happy with that. That's definitely within the tolerance I'm comfortable with, being a complete beginner at this stuff. So yeah, so I did those cuts. Yep, so once I had done those, I basically just measured. Here we go. So I measured from this inside point all the way up to the top and marked where 7 foot 11 and 3/8 inches was. Such a random number, but I mean, as you can see here, that's just the number it needs to be able to hit the Mini MoonBoard specifications. Obviously, if you're going to add some extra plywood to the top, if you're going to use part of that third sheet or something for adding on, that size can vary. And like, I would recommend playing around with the SketchUp file or something, or creating your own to really just see what you could cram into an 8-foot ceiling, because you could definitely do more. I just chose not to, just because I didn't want to deal with adding another panel, and just really liked how this looked. So yeah, that's the magic dimension there for getting everything to line up with this really weird piece of 2x6. So yep, so once we had that cut, yeah, I talked about cutting off the tip of all those 10-footers, all these main studs, cutting this tip off so that way it'd fit in the Joyce hanger. Again, sorry I can't think of a good way to like visualize or explain that. It's just something that you'll kind of figure out pretty quickly. It took us like a couple minutes with a square. Just, I mean, you could do it with a ruler or something just so you're making straight cuts, but yeah, not too complex or anything. Just kind of a weird thing. So once I had done these cuts, I had a bunch of extra 2x6 laying around. So I had my friend cut me 6 3-inch pieces, and those are just these pieces here. So it's just a 2x6 that's 3 inches long. Yeah, so I had him cut 6 of those for me. He did that really quickly, and then I had him cut me 2 6-inch. And this, again, for these 2 steps, there's so much scrap. If you do what I did and buy 8-footers and 10-footers, there's so much scrap left over. You should have no problem doing this. I will say, because I was nervous about the miter cuts, and because I was relying on having having extra scrap, I just did my miter cut at the very tip of the 2x6 to make sure that I'd have all this extra room. So basically, I did my miter cut like right at the end of this 2x6, and then once I measured out and drew a line at 7 feet 11 and 3/8, I still had like almost 2 feet left that I cut off right here. So I had that, you know, times 6. I had a lot of extra wood, still do, even after cutting these other pieces. So hopefully, if you kind of take that sort of tactic where you just are conservative with your cuts and don't just sort of do your miter higher up in the board, you should be fine. But yeah, you just need to get 6 3-inch pieces and then 2 6-inch pieces. And then you can, you know, the 2 6-inch pieces are for these spacers here. And once you've got all that, you're done with all your 2x6 cuts. And then yeah, for the kickboard where you just need to cut. So my friend was a complete beast, and I used a chalk line to just mark a line that was 6 inches down all the way across the piece of plywood, and he just like freehand cut like the straightest line I've ever seen with a circular saw straight down that line. Again, if you're going to try to like pick up a piece of scrap plywood or something from a leftover project, you know, you won't have to maybe do that. Or if you just, like if we were at his workstation at his house, he has like a giant table saw where he could have easily put the plywood panel down and cut through it. But instead, like we just had a panel on a random table that he brought over, and we had it clamped to it, had the whole sheet of plywood clamped to it, and then he just cut a straight 8-foot line, which was super awesome. But yeah, once you're done with that, you have all your cuts, because you don't have to cut the 2 sheets of 4x8 plywood, because that's the perfect size already. Okay, so last thing, as far as preparing the, there's a lot of videos on how to prepare your plywood with the T-nut holes, like how to drill, how to line them up, like stack them on top of each other and clamp them together flush, so that way you don't have to drill twice as many holes or more holes than you need to. So watch those videos. Just YouTube, search YouTube for those videos, and there's all sorts of good ones. Again, Climber Dad has all sorts of cool stuff about how to build things, so definitely check that out. Yeah, and then for these dimensions here, which, you know, they're going to be in the SketchUp file if you want to use that. They're also available on the moon climbing website. So yeah, there's good videos on how to use a chalk line to do that. Just make sure that you measure twice for all of this stuff, because 3 times, it was also late at night, but still 3 times I would mark all my lines and then realize that I had messed something up with my spacing. And as soon as you mess up one thing, all your other measurements are going to be off. So it was super annoying having to redo those, but it would have been twice as, like, way more annoying if I actually would have started drilling. So just measure more times than you want to or think you need to. At least if you're, you know, obviously if you're not trying to build a mini moonboard and you just want to use this design to make like a freestanding wall, by all means just drill holes wherever you're comfortable with. If you're trying to follow this and you want it to be to the, like, sort of, I don't know, standard that the moonboard's supposed to be at, then measure a lot with this stuff. So yeah, I think I'll wrap it up there. Just leave any comments if you have questions or would like more information or anything like that. Once I post, like before I post this video, I'll have a Google Drive folder that I will make shareable that just has the spreadsheet, maybe with the breakdown of costs, maybe the little lumber cut steps, and the SketchUp files. So yeah, hopefully that'll help some people. And sorry this video is so long, but to be perfectly honest, like if this video existed, someone else had made this video when I was super excited about researching how I was going to build this thing, I definitely think that I would have watched probably the whole thing at least once. So that's sort of my criteria for making a how-to video, is like, did it exist when I was trying to search for it? And if it didn't, then I'll make one. So, yep, thanks for watching.